Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media.co.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today, our guest is Yitzi Weiner, Editor-in-Chief of Authority Magazine and CEO of Thought Leader Incubator. Thanks for being with us, Yitzi.
Robert, it's a delight and a pleasure.
So we've known each other for a few years now, and I have to say, you've been such a great person in the PR and marketing world, and you've personally done so much for me and given me access to your readers, and I am so incredibly grateful for that. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with Authority Magazine, how we got here to 2020, where you're in a suit and tie, looking dapper. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and I eventually migrated to the East Coast in high school, and I went to Baltimore with the intent of going to medical school and becoming an oncologist. But during that transition period, I shifted gears actually, and I decided to become an ordained rabbi. So I got smicha ordination, and I was a teaching rabbi for about 15 years. I had a job in the Boston area. I skipped a little bit. I got married. I had a family in the meantime.
A bunch of kids, right? You have 5 kids?
I'm very blessed that I have 7 children. I have 6.
Congratulations.
6 girls and a boy. Yeah, I'm very blessed.
Amazing.
People often ask me why so much of my writing is about women and about women leaders, and I often say that I have 6 daughters, and it's my intent to be able to have my daughters grow up in a world that's a little more improved than ours. So I'm very invested in women's empowerment. So I was in the Boston area for about 9 years, and then I moved back to Baltimore, and I being a rabbi is a wonderful job, but it isn't always very lucrative. So I decided that I was going to have to start a business. Initially, I started a PR business. So most people who are in the PR field usually start out as a journalist, and then after they tap out journalism, they join the PR world. I actually had the opposite, the obverse migration. I started out in PR, and then I had a friend who invited me to become a contributor at Huffington Post. And when I was writing there for about a year, and then you may have noticed, this may have happened to you, Huffington Post, they closed down their contributor program. So I was left in the lurch, and I was trying to I was really enjoying the writing, I was really enjoying what I was doing, but that was that. But I had all this relationship equity and all these relationships with publicists that were pitching me different clients, and I realized that even though I wasn't writing Huffington Post, I still had all those relationships. And with my wife's encouragement, and I really think my wife's idea, she says, why don't you start your own using those relationships? So, so I started Authority Magazine in 2018. And, I was very blessed that because I already had relationships with publicists that were featuring very prominent leaders and sports figures, I was able to book some really good interviews. And then that kind of like snowball. Once other people see other people that are prominent leaders were being included in the magazine, I started getting, tons and tons of pitches, and now we're very blessed that we're one of Medium's largest publications, and wow. I think we probably publish like 50 articles a day.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that some of the large, like Money Magazine, for example, they publish like 10 a day. How are you publishing 50 a day? And tell us about the core for this podcast, Yitzi, is really like we want to give other business owners and entrepreneurs ideas about how they can grow and scale their businesses. And really the way we do that is we hear the stories of our guests and we all get ideas. And just so you know, like I started this podcast because that's my mission. I'm on the mission to grow and scale my business. And so like when you started Authority Magazine, so you started, how did you gain traction? Like, how did you get to a point where you had viewership and readership? And what's your business model, by the way? I don't even know that.
Sure. Sure. Excellent questions, friend. So let's each one we can focus on. So let's talk about how we gained traction, and then we can talk about how the business model. Or actually, you tell me, which one would you like first? Which one should I answer first?
As you started, how did you build the business?
Sure. So to grow, so the growth was really in two aspects. So we had like the front of the shop, so to speak. The masthead is the Authority Magazine. That's what people see. That's kind of that allows us to reach out to the entire world. So that grew a lot rapidly, and I think it was because number one, we at the beginning we decided that it wasn't only going to be a focus on the writing. It was also going to have a very strong visual component. That it wasn't enough to be an interesting story, but it should also look beautiful and look polished, and the whole presentation should be like a pleasant experience. That kind of like attracted you, and attracted a person. I got that idea from I read a biography about Steve Jobs. I'm sure many have. And that was Steve Jobs. As one of his insights was that he said that he once took a typography class, and that typography class in college that inspired him to kind of informed the whole aesthetic of Apple. And him, it wasn't just about the way it looked, but it was about the experience, the user experience.
I really like that. If I could jump in, that's really interesting, because one of the things that I didn't realize was happening until you just said it was my version of that was I had a job at a company called Eisenberg Group in Pasadena, and influencer marketing stuff, but they're fundamentally a design firm. Like they make like to the point where my presentations couldn't even be reviewed if I didn't have the right font on the presentations. I was like, oh, this is nuts. But Eric Eisenberg, he's a creative genius. And so I started understanding the power and value of creativity that I was looking at my whole life. I just didn't see it. So I love that. That's really interesting. So what was your version of that really, sorry, I think you just said, but I lost the idea.
Sure. So the truth is I skipped this part, but I'm also a trained graphic designer, and I also am a trained web designer. So I wasn't just bringing my editorial experience to the table. I was also bringing my design aesthetic. But like that idea was really strengthened to me by the biography I read of Steve Jobs, which is that we had to focus not only on the product but on the experience, the way users feel when they're reading it. So if it looks good, it's intuitive, it's easy to navigate, it's a pleasant experience, people will come back. So that's why I think more than others. I found other very, very prominent publications, really prominent, but they're just so hard to navigate, and they take forever to load. And it's just like, it's almost a pain. I don't want to read it on their site. I'd rather read it on like a Google News or my Windows newsreader, because the actual site is so clunky. So that was one thing that we focused on, but I don't think that was enough. I don't think that will be enough to drive to drive our growth.
The content has to be there too, right?
Right, sure. So I think I was very blessed. I think, and really I was once asked, is success based on luck or is it skill? And of course there's a combination of both. But to me, my real lucky break was the fact that I started Huffington Post. If I would have started like today out of the blue, it would be very difficult to get traction because people wouldn't take me seriously. At least in my experience, people took me seriously because I already had those relationships with publicists, and I already had that track record. I already had that portfolio that allowed me to like piggyback off that and dovetail off that. So that was like really a blessing. That was really a stroke of luck that I was invited to be writer. So yes. So number two is that I had this really large bank of relationships. You may know this, but I have like a Slack group of like almost 4,000 publicists that I've worked with. They're in the Slack group, and basically as we get more pitches, more join. And what this does is that this allows me to when I have a new story, reach out to this group of publicists, and they'll pitch their clients. So by maintaining that whole those relationships with publicists that I saw as like gatekeepers to prominent leaders, that allowed us to book some really good clients and eventually, book some good features, and eventually that helped to grow the business. But that's from the editorial side, from the actual writing side. From the business side, so our business model, and as you know, the media in general is struggling because the business model has always been about advertising, and that now basically people block ads, block banner ads, block ads on websites. So the advertising has gone way down. All the advertising money has gone to Facebook and Google. So everybody's struggling with different models. In fact, in Baltimore here, the Baltimore Sun is becoming a nonprofit organization. Basically, they're a nonprofit. They're going to be they're doing fundraisers, maybe not unlike NPR, where basically they see themselves as a nonprofit, a social impact business where they're trying to bring transparency to government and to society. But so the point is that media in general is really struggling. So this is our business model. This is what we do. We have a small staff. We have like five people, 5 paid members on the staff. We have about 30 writers, 30 30 full-time writers that are consistent. We maybe have more than that, but they're occasional. So our business model is that we have a program. In addition to Authority Magazine, we have a program called the Thought Leader Incubator. What that does is that it's kind of like a boot camp, a training boot camp for leaders to become contributors, to become quasi journalists, and they get all the benefits, the perks that come with being a journalist. So a journalist, when you're a journalist, you have to talk to exciting people. You get invited to prominent events. You get your name in the news. It's not about you, but your name is in the byline. And there are certain benefits that come with being a contributor. You have certain access. So what we do is we have like a boot camp. We train leaders to become a contributor. We started with Authority Magazine, and then we train them to syndicate their content to other platforms. So basically, we have like a bank of people that are business leaders, but they're looking to share their thought leadership, and we help these leaders to create content. Create content very frequently because you have the whole team behind you to help assemble the content.
Wow.
And then with all the content, once you have you do like a daily syndicated column, then you turn that into a book. We have many clients that turn their content into books, and once you have a book, or once you're doing interviews already like this, you could turn that into a podcast. Once you're doing interviews with leaders, we turn that into a podcast. And then once you do that, once you have that visibility, that like robust digital profile, we help to pitch them to do once they have the content, once they have a book, once they have a podcast, we can help pitch them to do like a TED talk and join the speaker circuit. So the idea is it's an organic progression from being a content creator to an author, to a podcaster, to a speaker, that starts with being a frequent daily contributor.
So if I want to learn more about the Thought Leader Incubator, like what is exactly the program? Is there are there videos? Is there a video training? Like let's go into the details of that. Sure.
So the main thing is that it's really trial by fire, in the sense that there's a joke there in the Hungarian Navy. The way they taught people how to swim was to throw them into the water, and then they learned how to swim. So the point is that so what we do is we kind of people jump right in. So the training comes in the form of a weekly call with my clients, and I give them guidance. We're constantly emailing, but the main thing is the actual writing. So my clients focus on doing interviews. So basically, for example, they'll create a content series around their area of expertise. So I'll give you an example. I have a client named, actually, maybe I shouldn't say the name, but I have a client, we'll call her Wendy. Her focus is in empowering a woman in STEM. So basically, we have a series on inspirational women in STEM, and so Wendy, she together we decided on the topic. We wrote a list of questions that are what I call story containers, questions that draw out a story. Like you could ask a question that's kind of a one-line answer, but you can also ask a question that draws out a story. Like you're asking really open-ended questions that really elicit good conversation. So we make a list of questions that are like story containers. And then once you have the questions, then we create a source request. So I create a form, I put it out in my Slack group, as you know, a Slack group that has all these publicists, and then they'll pitch their clients. I also put it in, we're in this group, this publicist group, the Czars group. So I put it there. I also put it on Harrow, and there are other sites that are similar to Harrow that are kind of gathering points, or different publishers, different publicists to pitch content. So I put it in all these different places, and then usually in a series we'll get about 300 pitches to be included in a series, and then me and Wendy will go through the list, see who we want to include, and then we'll email them all the questions, and then basically so we're interviewing them over the email basically.
Sure.
And then they'll respond. All that comes back into Wendy's portal, into like to this feed, and then we have the raw contents. Then our team goes through it, does slight editing, formats it, puts the pictures together, and then that turn that into an article. So Wendy's contribution is basically it's her questions. Some of my clients, not all of them, some of them with my guidance they'll introduce their article with their own independent thought leadership. But now Wendy's like at the center of all these interviewing all these interesting prominent leaders about the topic of her expertise, and then now she's able to release an article every single day with an interesting interview with a prominent leader.
So does the article live on Authority Magazine?
Yeah, so it starts with Authority Magazine, and then we have a syndication partnership with Thrive Global and with Entrepreneur. So and also you also have a similar relationship. Well, it's a little different, but similar with BuzzFeed. So the easiest one for us is Thrive Global. We have a very strong relationship with the editors there, Rebecca Muller, and again the other ones are a little more strict, and they were more selective. But the basic idea is that so with kind of under our tutelage, she's able to create this content, and then we're able to syndicate it in different forms. It gets repurposed slightly. We're able to syndicate it in different places. This way everyone benefits. This way, Authority Magazine we have all this content this year. The interviewee gets this exposure, they're getting very good PR. And then the interviewer, the interviewer with their question, they're able to get that exposure by having the name get out there, and they're able to make those connections, and their bios on the bottom of the article, so that allows them to get that exposure. So
everyone, Wendy, for example, Wendy's your client in this thought leader incubator, right? So what is this is fascinating to me. What is her business goal?
Sure. So different clients have different goals. So in her case, her goal is primarily to get her name out. Basically, because since she started, she probably has like 500 articles. So the 500 articles in a prominent publication that have her name and her bio on it. So like, for example, if you'd be doing regular PR, let's say you hire a publicist. So you pay $5,000, and maybe you'll get 5 or 10 media hits a month. This way, during this program, she's able to get almost 60 because she's able to do like almost 30 interviews a month. Once it gets syndicated in different places, it can be on more than 60 articles. So each month she's able to get 60 media hits, and she's able to control the frequency and control the narrative because she's a contributor. Now, just the main difference is that it's not about Wendy, it's not about her, but she's sharing value-added information with the public. But she's able to get the benefit of that, her name getting out there. And because she has that tutelage, we're guiding her to create that content.
So let's talk about that a little further, right? So Wendy might have a goal of being the dominant name around STEM education for women, right?
Right.
So Wendy equals STEM education for women. So that's a long-term opportunity. There's also the search engine optimization benefit. Anytime there's a link, like do these publications provide a link back to Wendy as the author, back to like her website? So
they do, but I think the main value comes from the fact that her name is in the headline. So many different, her name is in the headline or the one right, like the sub headline, so many different articles. So even if there wasn't a link, but which there is, but it would still be valuable for that. And also the fact that most of the people that you interview, and just talking to companies like Intel and HP and Facebook and Google, the principals, not the CEO, but some of the women leaders there. So very often they'll encourage people to republish the article on their own websites, to share with their newsletter. So she gets that exposure, she gets that tangential exposure.
Right. She's hosting the party, right? Like she's the person that's associated with this form of this particular type of knowledge, and she becomes the expert just by de facto. Because even if nothing is linking back to her site, or very few links are, in the search results, you're eventually gonna, if you do your research, you're eventually gonna keep seeing her name associated with this, and there's the default, okay, she's the expert on this topic.
Right.
And I could also see like all these additional conversations that she's having with these business leaders also puts her in a really valuable position, further entrenching her as the gatekeeper.
Right, 100%. What I found is that, so Wendy was invited to many different prominent tech conferences as to cover the event, and she was flown in there and wined and dined at these events, and she would speak to these, to the speakers, the headliners of the events. And normally it would be difficult to access those people, but now she's the journalist covering it. And again, so she really is an expert. She really has a lot to share. This gives her more opportunities that she wouldn't be able to otherwise access.
So how long do you think for an average Wendy? Like Wendy might be the exception and she does really well, and there's the people on the other side who are kind of like, the results aren't as fast. What do you like when someone goes into this program? What do you kind of like promise them, and what, like, minimum, what's the result that they can expect, and what's the time frame for that result?
Sure, so excellent question. So it really depends on what your goal is. So I'll give you an example. This program works best with people that are selling knowledge. They're selling their thought leadership. I once had a client they were selling an app. And they thought maybe if they're having their app in a lot of different articles, they'll sell well. And it didn't really convert well. There weren't many downloads of this app from the articles. That's because this person's expertise, the person's articles, the content they were sharing, it's about building up the person's knowledge. It isn't about selling an app. So I found that it works better if a person they have a service. So, if they're a lawyer, they're an accountant, they're a marketer, they want to be a thought leader in tech or do reforming education. So that could be, so basically they want to present their knowledge. So it works best for those verticals. So that's number one. It wouldn't work for somebody who's in retail and want to sell a product that doesn't work as well. It works better with a service. And so number two, it really depends on the goal. So I do have some clients, their main goal is simply just to create content. All they care about is just basically, this is a cheaper way than hiring their own writer for their company. This is a way to create content that they could use on their own website or their own platforms. So I have some clients, all they care about is the content. They don't care at all about anything else, anything more than that. But others, like let's say Wendy, in this case, her goal is to become a leader. So she's writing a book now with all the interviews. She's turning that into a book. Her goal is to become a prominent speaker. So she was doing it for about 8 months, and she's really come a long way. So the answer to your question is a long-winded answer. It really depends on the goals. If your goal is to simply get your name out there, then we do that in the first month. If your goal is to make relationships, we do that right away. If your goal is, however, to get invited to conferences, to give talks, if your goal is to see an increase in sales, then you'll have to do it longer.
And how much, how do you charge for this program?
Sure. So we have different tiers. Like the most expensive tier is $5,000 a month, and the middle one is $3,000 a month, and the introductory level is $2,000 a month. And the way I say it is, you see it in terms of the value you're getting. So, again, I came from a PR world, and when you hire publicists, people are paying $5,000 a month for publicists. And they can't guarantee anything, and you can't control the narrative. Maybe you'll get 5 or 10 hits. So with this thing, this program, the entry level is far cheaper than that, and you can get much more. Again, it's not a regular PR. It's not again, it won't be about you, but it's a way that you could. It's what I call authority PR. It's a way to build your authority by creating content, by interfacing with prominent leaders in your industry, talking to people that could be advantageous to your business goals. So yes, so those are the prices.
You know what's interesting about that, and I'm coming at this from the perspective of paid media, the way, and I think this is like such a nice add-on, which is you take the best content that Wendy creates and you simply run ads against it. Like precision targeting to the people you want to reach, the article that is the right article that references Wendy. And now and I'm talking about like anywhere from $200 to $1,000 a month. And that's why I just saw an ad yesterday for a band. Nighthawk, I think is the band. And they were like, hey, we love this thanks for the great review. They referenced some writer in a music publication, which is a great way of amplifying the testimonial that someone else is talking about you, or whatever the case might be. Fascinating stuff. That is such a cool model.
Appreciate it.
So,
Thank you.
So what does the world look like for you over the next 1 to 2 years? Is it you're going to continue to scale this business? Like what are your goals? Like what do you want to accomplish over the next few years of your life? Like do you have the aspirations to be like what are your aspirations?
Sure. It's a good question. So I would like Authority Magazine to be almost like a LinkedIn, in the sense that it's a place where if you are, if not LinkedIn like a social network, but it's a place if you are a leader, you're expected to have a profile in Authority Magazine. It's a thing that you do to, it's like a rite of passage to be a leader. It's a place that you get your profile in Authority Magazines. Like nowadays everyone wants to get verified and this blue check. It's like a thing that you pass through to be seen as a leader. It's a way to share. If you're a thought leader, this is the soapbox that you want to get on to share with the world. That's what I hope to be. Again, our goal isn't to break news. Our goal is to be able to give leaders a platform to be able to share really interesting value-added information with the public in a way that's visually appealing, that's compelling, that's interesting. So that's my vision, and I'm very blessed that because I work closely with we're working Medium, and Medium has very high domain authority. So when a person does get an interview with Authority Magazine, it's like among the top search results for their name. So I'm very blessed that it's like that's how it goes. Like the person look up a person's name, you see their LinkedIn profile, and then you see the Authority Magazine profile. Even with very prominent leaders, like it's our interviews are among the highest, the top results. So that's what I hope to see. And to reach that, so I've been very blessed that we have a syndication partnership with Entrepreneur and with Thrive. I would love to be able to expand that. I would love to, if any of your listeners or if you have relationships with other managing editors, I'd love to be able to introduce what we're doing to other editors. For example, what we do with Entrepreneur is every week we share our content with the editors there, and then they share the content with us, and then we each share each other's content. That way we're able to each grow our readership.
Can you tell me more? Sorry, Yitzi, can you tell me more about, about Medium? Okay, I know the publication. But I never really, and I still don't really understand the distinction between Medium and. I understand that Authority Magazine is a separate publication and it's a brand and it's yours. But how does it work with Medium? I know there's a paid version of Medium and a non-paid version of Medium. Like, I never really understood that.
Sure. So yes, so Medium was started by one of the co-founders of Twitter. As you know, Twitter's premise is to be able to share very short form content. So Medium's kind of like the response to that, where you're able to share long form content. So Medium is really the publisher. You should see it more like WordPress. Medium is like WordPress. Medium isn't like Forbes. Forbes is a magazine, but Medium is more like WordPress, where they create an ecosystem by which people can create websites. So Medium is an ecosystem by which people can create content. Now, anyone can make a Medium page, make their own Medium page, but the truth is though that people may not, it doesn't really have the visibility. So within Medium, they have different publications. They have their own officially sponsored publications. They have their own things those are like on the top masthead of Medium, like I think it's called like Zero and Gen.
Yeah, I'm on the site right now. I see Elemental, Gen, Zora. So are those are
Right. So those are Medium's publications. The Medium has a paid editorial staff, and they basically those are their own publications that they push. But but then within that ecosystem, you can create a publication. For example, the way I found out about it was when I actually sent an email, and I didn't think I would get a response. So I sent an email to Ariane Huffington after she left Huffington Post, asked her if I could be a contributor at Thrive, and she responded. Surprisingly, she responded with her own email, and she said, "Sure, we'd love we would love for you to join." So at that point, Thrive was primarily on Medium, and so we used it to Medium, and then Thrive Global was a Medium publication. Eventually, they migrated to their own site, but when I started with Thrive, it was a Medium. So that's really how I became familiarized with the platform. So yeah, so to answer your question, Medium is really like an ecosystem. They have their own publications, and then they host other publications, and then people can create their own page. So Authority Magazine is different in the fact that because we have a large viewership, and also we're interviewing very prominent people. It gets like our articles get very high domain authority, and it's basically they come behind the search results, which doesn't happen if a person writes it on their own Medium page, and also gets seen by prominent people.
So so let's expand on that. I'm looking at the Authority, so the website. So if I search for Authority Magazine, or if I type in authoritymagazine.com, does it go to Medium?
If you have Authority Magazine, it'll come up. Authority Magazine will come up right away. Authority Magazine.
Yeah, so search for Authority Magazine. What is your, I guess, when I'm thinking about SEO, and I'm not an SEO expert, it's not what I know how to do generally, but I've learned a little bit about it building my own site. I'm actually ranking for some really interesting keywords that are like valuable to our business. And I'm like low-key surprised that on my own, with like a little bit of guidance from people that I've met, I've been able to make it work. But like, I always thought like it's better to have access to your own domain and to own that and to build it up over the course of years. And I'm fascinated by the fact that how much emphasis you're placing on Medium. Like, do you think your access to domain authority and viewability has been faster because you're on Medium, and it would have been a slower run if you would have done it on your own domain?
It's an excellent question. So I think the answer is that I think you're right. Normally you want to do your own thing, but I think because we created a publication that had a lot of views right in the beginning, so our domain authority is 96. Just in a perspective, like I think Forbes has like 93 maybe. So that's because Medium has extremely high domain authority. Wikipedia is 100. That's like the highest you can get. So Medium's domain authority is extremely high. And so if I was starting from scratch, it would be yitziweiner.com. Not in 20 years would I get to 96. So for me, so the answer to your question is, I think normally you're right, but in this case, it was a confluence of fortuitous factors that made me decide that this is something that I should focus on, and that's why I focus only on Medium.
I totally hear what you're saying. That's fascinating. So, and for the foreseeable future, you're going to keep the Medium as your domain.
Yeah. In fact, recently, it was maybe about a month ago, or maybe a little more. I was asked to do a call with one of the principals at Medium, and they said, do you ever plan to leave Medium? And I said, I'm very happy. To me, it sounded like they were they were concerned that as people grow, they leave. But I said, no, I'm really happy, and as long as things stay the way they are in terms of its traffic results, I'd like to stay.
So I'm on Ahrefs, looking at medium.com/authority magazine, and what I'm seeing is 59,000 backlinks to your site, to your page, to your site. About 4,000 referring domains. You're ranking for 49,000 keywords, and you have about, I mean, this is incredible. Do you think that a lot of the fact that you publish so much content I imagine that has to be helpful for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful. It's helpful in several ways. So number one, I don't ever, we don't advertise. This it's its own inherent advertising. The whole idea is that we're sharing content with the public. So we're showing people how to do that. So the more we produce, the more we're able to reach out, more we are reaching out. Yeah, 100%. Basically, we're creating a lot of content, and because our focus is on feature interviews, so the content that's created is, it's not difficult. It's not time consuming to create a lot of content that way.
Well, and I mean, it's a virtuous cycle, right? You're giving people who normally don't have access to press an opportunity to get seen and heard, which is extremely powerful. And then secondly, those people are linking back and sharing with all their friends and family and professional contacts. It's a virtuous cycle. You also host the party and you're the cool kid on the block because parents aren't home and you're throwing a massive party. Like, it's the high school model, right?
Sure. The way I see it as like like you said, exactly. We're like a soapbox. We're like the megaphone, giving leaders a good megaphone with prompts. See if you give someone a blank page, say share your thought leadership, they don't know where to start. But when you start with, okay, we're doing a topic on the 5 ways that we're going to rebuild in the post-COVID economy. We're doing a series on five things to do to become a thought leader. You give them prompts and questions. People can respond to specific questions, so that it kind of empowers everyone to open up to be able to share.
Amazing. So how can people find Thought Leader Incubator?
Yeah, I think if you Google Thought Leader Incubator, it comes up right away. It's also on the about page of Authority Magazine.
Cool. Before we finish up, Yitzi, I'm a foodie. I like eating really great food. What? Tell me. You said you're in Boston, right?
Well, now I'm in Baltimore, but I lived in Boston for 9 years.
You're in Baltimore. What do you like to eat in Baltimore? I've never been there. What's good food?
You mean like restaurants or
whatever you like to eat, like whatever comes up. Maybe you like home cooking. Maybe you like a restaurant. Whatever is good.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. As I mentioned, I'm married. I have 7 children. So my wife and my oldest daughter, actually my 2 oldest daughters, they love to cook. So, we eat dinner together. I'm very blessed. Every night we eat dinner together at 5:30. Whole family sits together. So I think my favorite food is probably my wife's eggplant parmesan. That's among my favorite food. But it's really the truth is that anything that's home cooked. Yeah.
I love that. What? Okay. So Yitzi, how do you want people to reach out to you after this podcast?
So kind, really so kind, Robert. Yeah. So you can reach me on LinkedIn. It's easy. Or my email is editor@authoritymag.co, co.com, authoritymag.co. Or you could, if you Google me also, it comes up.
You rank.
I think if you Google the word Yitzi, I think just the word Yitzi comes up.
I love that. Yitzi Weiner, thank you so much. I think this has been totally illuminating. I love this. The interesting thing, I wanted to be a journalist. There's a part of me but I kind of failed at it. Like I was in high school and I was like, okay, I'm going to be, I was in journalism class for like a month and a half. And then I don't know what happened in high school. And I found myself not there anymore. Like I must've messed up somehow. And, or I just maybe didn't like it. But what I find as a business owner is that we're almost like scientists in a way. Like we're always doing research. And the best research, the insights that we see on these campaigns, we bubble up, and that's the information that passes on into new campaigns and refines our process, right? It allows us to build new products and services. Now, when you think about journalism, journalists do a lot of that. They're research. They're the experts on a particular topic, whether it be a city or a knowledge-based topic or whatever, sports, whatever the case might be. And it's not surprising to me that these are the people who get on stage talking about stuff, because even though they're not doing the thing, they're not playing sports, or they're not a practitioner or whatever, they've done so much research, they know about it. I just think that's interesting. It's an interesting model to me, to see journalism becoming a critical part of how business owners get exposure. It's different. Like, it's new. I don't think this thing existed 10 years ago, like this type of model, right?
100%. I think it's because what we define as journalism has expanded. Initially, probably when you go to school, journalism, we think of as someone who's a beat reporter, who's breaking news, who's talking to people, breaking news. But that's one particular genre of news. That maybe those are the top stories, but there's so much other content that has to be written, and doesn't require the same doesn't always require the same tools that breaking news does. So, like, if your goal is to you want to be a journalist sharing lifestyle information, so all you have to do is just interview a wellness expert, or interview a doctor, just interview a sports star. You don't have to be an athlete to interview a sports star. So right. So you don't have to break news. So I think our media consumption has evolved, and therefore the requirements of being the requirements of being a journalist have opened up.
It's fascinating, and I know there's, yeah, okay, we'll leave it at that. Yitzi, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I appreciate your time here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.